Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
You are listening to the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1230 WBZT. And don't forget, we're also on Liberty Radio Express, and it's libertyradioexpress.com. We're doing 2 hours a day from, when are we doing it? I think from 6 to 8. And spent a great weekend today, or this weekend, with Alan Butler in Atlanta. He's the one that runs Liberty Express Radio, and just working out some things there because we're going to be doing a live show at some point. That was the announcement I wanted to let you know about, which I do a live show every Sunday in West Palm on WBZT, and I love doing the live show. God, when you start radio and you think the whole world is listening to you and they actually care what you say and they're hanging on your every word, you're thinking, oh my God, what if I mispronounce a syllable? What if I say something wrong? What if I say a 4-letter word? And you just think that people actually care what you're saying. And then you realize probably nobody in the world is listening. Nobody really cares. And then your audience starts building, and then things kind of take off from there. And eventually you find your way, you find your level. And doing a live show on Liberty Radio, it's just a great thing because there's tens of thousands of people listening on that network, on that internet radio station. So hats off to Alan. He's a great guy. He came up with that concept and he ran with it, and it's just great to be a part of it. So a couple of stories we're going over here. Today is Monday. It's August 19th. If you can believe it, the summer's gone. They actually started school today in Florida. The little Rugrats were walking to school. They were getting on the bus. Their mothers were jamming Starbucks. It was just a nightmare. Me and the guys, we kind of ran away from Starbucks just to get away. The soccer moms had taken over. They need their education. Today just made me a total proponent of homeschooling. If that's what it takes to get them the heck out of my Starbucks, then I'm totally in favor of homeschooling, I got to tell you. So here's a good outrage column. Convicted Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., Democrat of Illinois, he's scheduled to receive $8,700 per month in government disability pay, as well as a partial federal pension of $45,000, I guess annual pension. That generous $8,700 disability pension comes thanks to Jackson's sudden development of a mood disorder as the federal government began looking to indict him. Jackson, he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Other than being Jesse Jackson Sr.'s son, he had no history of mental illness during his prior 17 years in Congress. And the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. has defended his son's claims of mental illness, stating to the court, "This time a year ago, I thought we may have lost him. And I wish we could just lose the entire Jackson clan. They're corrupt to the core. They're just horrible people. And at least losing him for 2.5 years, well, that's a start." So I caught this article from Slate.com. It's kind of a communist website, collectivist website, probably financed by George Soros. But hey, some of my best friends are commies. I think I was once married to one in a past life. So you got to give him some slack by this guy, Justin Mattis. He said he worked in finance. He had a generous health plan. Now he can't afford to pay the state-subsidized annual insurance premium of $7,000, which he says is 6 months' rent himself. Despite his good health, his appendix could become inflamed at any time, and appendix removal surgery costs $33,000, which is a house down payment. Any medical problem that can't be fixed with a pill could bankrupt him, he says. So his friend Tika exposed to him a more frugal solution. Tika spends his days and limited money traveling Asia by foot or bicycle. I mean, who does this guy hang out with? And when he got a hernia, Tika flew to India to have it repaired. There he paid $300, which was groceries for a month. And maybe I got to go to India, go live there. I don't know. For a surgery that would have cost $29,000, which he measures in 6 acres of farmland. Here, Tika was a medical tourist, a patient who travels abroad for cost-effective treatment for cancer, cosmetic surgery. Well, man, after I've lost all this weight, maybe I got to start thinking about this. Or any large yet time-sensitive medical need. Some people, he says, travel to Belgium for hip replacement surgery because the same implant there that is sold for $4,000 in Belgium can go for $39K here. And these savings are significant enough that U.S. citizens are willing to brave unfamiliar hospitals and recuperate from serious procedures away from their family and friends. And trust me, sometimes family and friends, contrary to popular belief, can be huge obstacles in your recuperation. They can make your life hell. But look, also, family and friends can be invaluable to the healing and recuperative process. And of course, for some Americans, discounted foreign medical care is available much closer to home. You know, I mentioned before, San Diego residents, they can drive to Tijuana, Mexico, get 60% off on tummy tucks and dental crowns. Of course, you might wind up looking like Frankenstein. Some cross-border nursing of broken bones. I mean, look, in the rest of the country, you don't really have that option. I mentioned I was involved in a case one time. They were looking to build a series of nursing homes in Baja, Mexico, that little peninsula that extends off of California. They were going to build like a complex of them with phenomenal ocean views. The place was gorgeous. And for just a few $100s a year for minor assisted living, to a few $100s a month, rather, for minor assisted living, going down to like $1,000 or $2,000 a month if you needed nursing care, and then your family could visit you from California. And that led me to thinking, well, maybe we could set up like power plants there, all sorts of noxious things like prisons, just export everything that we didn't want to do in the U.S., all the obnoxious things, build nuclear power plants. And then you think, well, hey, and this guy kind of came up with the same thing. What about Indian reservations? Like all the stuff that we don't want on American soil, let's just do it on Indian reservations. And he was saying, like in the Mohegan Sun and the Pequot reservations up in Connecticut, we just build these nursing homes. There's no unions there. There's no work restrictions. There's no OSHA. There's nothing. Like, for instance, if you're in the casinos in Connecticut and you have a slip and fall, you don't sue in state court and get this fabulous settlement. Like, you know, if you break your wrist in Connecticut, you could get like $50,000 on a slip and fall case. You go to a tribunal court, and the tribunal court basically awards you double your out-of-pocket expenses. And basically, the tribunal court is a bunch of fake Indians, because like the Pequots are fake Indians. It's a fake tribe. You don't believe me? Go read this book called Without Reservation. It was a dead tribe. The Mohegans supposedly are a real tribe. I'm skeptical of it, but people tell me they're real. I don't believe it, but they're more real than the Pequots, put it that way. So they're federally recognized, which means they have sovereignty. And on those reservations, they're not allowed to unionize. So open up a hospital on the reservations. Don't allow malpractice lawsuits. Don't allow insurance. Just inform all patients, our staff, our doctors are uninsured. Anything that happens on the reservation, you have no right to sue in state court. You go and you will sue in a tribunal court, and we'll have a little trial, and you get up to double your out-of-pocket expenses. You don't like it, don't come to our hospitals. Of course, the fees associated with our hospitals will only be 10 to 25% more than what you pay. Will only be 10 to 25% of what you would pay at a Anglo hospital down the road. Sorry if you don't like it, but you don't want to come to our hospitals and save the money. Don't come. And he's saying that get all these doctors, and in fact, we're going to set our own standards for nurses and doctors here. In fact, nurses could just have an online certificate, and doctors, I guess they could go to Guadalajara in Mexico, and it doesn't matter if you didn't get board certified. We're okay with that. In fact, we'll even let veterinarians operate on humans. Well, you got to have some standards. They could agree to adhere to American or regular state standards in Connecticut. So, in effect, I think you could get better care at these Indian hospitals that you'd get at regular state hospitals or state-sanctioned hospitals. I'm going to talk more about this next. Kerry Lutz, Triple Lutz Report, 1230 WBZT. Hi, it's Kerry Lutz. I recently decided to move my retirement account into physical precious metals to hedge against the coming times. If you want to move an existing retirement account into physical precious metals that you can hold in your hand, tax-free, there's no company that can do it more quickly and efficiently than Regal Assets. It took them just 24 hours to open my new IRA account, and all I had to do was fill out one simple form. The best part is that Regal Assets does all the work for you. They cover the setup and administrative costs for 2013. If you're interested in making the same move I did, call 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620, or visit them at regalassets.com. You'll be glad you did, and tell them Kerry sent you. We are back. You're listening to Kerry Lutz on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com, 1230 WBZT. So we're talking about alternative medicine on Indian reservations. So the beauty is, you got to understand that when you go to an Indian reservation, you're going to another country. I don't know if they could give out their own money. I guess effectively casino chips on these reservations are kind of like their own legal tender. You could use them to pay debts at Indian establishments. So imagine you go get some surgery and they say, here's your bill, and you just pay them off in casino chips. That would be kind of funny. And, you could build nuclear power plants there to power the needs of the hospitals. The interesting thing is the deal with Connecticut on their casinos, they collect sales tax at the casinos, and they pay a tax to Connecticut in lieu of a income tax based on their gaming earnings, which is a pittance compared to how much they make. Although a few years ago, the Pequots almost went bankrupt because they overexpanded, and they basically just told their bondholders to take a hike. I don't know if they're doing any better. Might be doing a little better now. The Mohegans were smarter than the Pequots, which shows, I guess, that real Indians are smarter than fake Indians. I don't know what it shows, but you know what I'm saying here. So the point here is there's all sorts of room for mischief when you're dealing with little carve-outs of American sovereignty on the mainland here. But I think this guy has got some good ideas on utilizing the semi-autonomous regions within the U.S. for reforming the medical system. Because what's screwing up the medical system in the United States is over-regulation, is the legal system, the tort system. And if you could utilize these Indian reservations, or do we call them Native American reservations? I don't know what you call them. But look, the same thing is, let's set up colleges too on these reservations. And they set up colleges, the Mashtan Pequot University, and they don't need any accreditation. They give out credits, and they can go hire the best people in the world. They can give online credits. They can do everything. And there's no regulation. There's no insurance requirements. There's no nothing. They just teach kids. And internet learning, online learning, everything else. And they charge a reasonable fee because they don't have any regulatory hassles from the government. The government doesn't hassle them. The government stays out of everything, and they just collect money. I mean, imagine that. And pretty much you just pay for what you get. There's no student loans. They don't get any money from the government. I mean, imagine the concept here. I mean, there's so many things that you could do once you have the government out of your hair. And there's no unions involved, and there's no regulation that says that you have to have X number of square feet per student in the classroom, and that you have to provide X number of services. All of this stuff that the government sticks their nose into, the Indians can basically say, we don't need it. And I think it would be amazing to see what these regulatory-free zones are able to provide to the American public that really is currently lacking in the marketplace because of all the intervention and accreditation and everything else that the federal government forces on people. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And, one other thing I want to talk about, healthcare. You know that I've been on this health kick, and it's not a health kick. What I want you to understand is I didn't get into this because I want to live to 100. I'm not really interested in living to 100. I want you to understand that. I kind of got into it because I'm scared that I might live to 100. I really wasn't interested in living to 100, but here's the thing. I might live to 100, and then what? I don't want to be in a situation where if I live to 100, then what? Then I'm in horrible condition. Here's the thing. You don't know how long you're going to live. All right? Right now I'm 56. I was in okay health, meaning I was pretty mobile. I could do whatever I wanted to do. I had issues. I had metabolic syndrome, okay? Meaning that I had high blood sugar, bordering or perhaps had type 2 diabetes. That's the denial kicking in. Had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, all that stuff. Okay? So, and, it was I was definitely having symptoms from all that stuff. So I decided I needed to lose some weight. A couple of years ago, I lost 20 pounds, and the symptoms lessened. Then they came back later this year, so I decided I needed to lose more weight. I lost another 20 pounds. At the present time, the symptoms are gone. I've dramatically altered my eating habits, cut out a lot of the meat and animal protein, upped intake of vegetables and fruits. And what has been the end result? The symptoms are totally gone. All of the counts in my blood pressure, my blood sugar, and my cholesterol have all normalized. All of them have normalized. So here's the point. I'm not crazy about living to 100. May or may not be a great idea. It may or may not be for me, but I don't have any control over it. I'm not going to end my life, so I avoid making it to 100. That's not my thing there. Obviously, if I had a horrible disease, I don't really want to be a burden on my family. So then that's another story, and I'll deal with it if I have to. Point is, if I make it to 85, I want to be the healthiest 85-year-old that I can be. And if I could do that by altering my diet, then that's what I'm going to do. So I'm watching, accidentally, I assure you, public TV, because it's a concept I hate and I'm totally against. And on comes, they're doing a begathon. I hate begathons. I'll never give those SOBs a penny as long as they're taking in any of my taxpayer dollars. On comes a guy, I've seen him on a bunch of different shows, Joel Furman, MD, and he happens to be from New Jersey, so he's got my attention. He's written books. He's got a website. Brilliant guy. And he's talking about all these drugs I was taking, which I'm cutting out, how eventually they become toxic to your body, and basically how the American country, we are the most unhealthy country in the world because all of this stuff that we eat, which passes for food, does very little for giving us the nutrients that we need. We don't drink enough water. And I'm transfixed by this guy. He's amazing. And everything he's saying, I know is true. And I'm listening to him. And, I know I'm hearing the truth. And he's got his own food pyramid. And on top of the food pyramid are beef, sweets, cheese, milk, processed foods, hydrogenated oils, which you have rarely. Then he's got poultry, eggs, oils, once weekly or less. Fish, fat-free, dairy, twice weekly or less. Whole grains, raw nuts, seeds, limit daily. Then he's got fruits, beans, legumes, unlimited, vegetables, half-cooked, half-raw, unlimited. I mean, the guy has hit upon something. And, I'm listening to this guy, and I said, my God, he knows what he's talking about. So I've made the commitment to alter my diet, to change my lifestyle. This man is amazing. His website is www.diseaseproof.com. And we're going to try to get him on the show because, look, it also fits into Financial Survival Network amazingly well because if you're healthy, you're not taking drugs to keep you going. You're not taking your metformin. You're not taking your blood sugar medication. You're not taking blood pressure medication. You're not taking your statins and umpteenth other drugs. You're not taking steroids. You're not taking aspirin to try to thin out your blood. You don't have to take any of this stuff, so you're saving money there. You're not getting sick, all right? Your insurance costs go down. Your medical costs go down. Your co-payments go down. Everything goes down. Your costs to feed your family are much, much less. You're saving thousands and thousands of dollars a year. That's what I'm saving right now. My costs have gone so much lower to feed myself, to drug myself. This is incredible. I don't know why I didn't think of it before. I'm not a health freak. I am not going to proselytize this stuff. I'm just bringing it to your attention. If you think it has value, do it. If you don't, then don't do it, okay? I'm not going to tell you I'm never going to have a hamburger, a steak, or a hot dog. In fact, me and Brett are going to cook some dogs for lunch today because I'm going to have a hot dog. I mean, look, all right, you can get crazy over this crap, okay? I'm not gonna. I'm still going to have a bratwurst every now and then. I'm not going to say never, but I'm going to do it in strict moderation. All right. Main thing is I'm not going on a thrice weekly juice cleanse. I think that is idiotic. I don't believe in it. I think that is fanatical and nuts. All right. But you know where your health begins? Let me tell you where it begins. Every morning when you get on your scale, that's when your health begins. All right. Don't go crazy over this. Moderate the junk. You can have junk periodically, rarely, as he says, once a month. Treat yourself, okay? You've been a good boy, you've been a good girl, have some. That's all. Up next, we're going to talk more about this staying healthy thing because I think it's important, but I got a couple other things that you really need to hear about. It's Kerry Lutz on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com, 1230 WBZT.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Jason Hartman has helped thousands of people realize their dreams of financial independence through real estate investing. And now he's got an unbeatable offer for you. He's offering you his proven course that thousands have used to build an income property empire, and it's free to the first 100 Financial Survival Network listeners. Just go to jasonhartman.com/Lutz and sign up today. For cash flow and capital appreciation, there's nothing else like it. Make your money work as hard as you do by building an income property empire. Real estate is America's proven investment. Go to jasonhartman.com/Lutz and get your free course today. That's Jason, HARTMAN.com/Lutz. Thousands have paid nearly $300 for this course, but for this short period of time, you can get it free. So we are back and talking about Joel Fuhrman. So, you know, the whole point, this eating healthy thing, is, like I said, just to improve the quality of your life. I'm not trying to live to 100. I don't particularly want to live to 100. If it happens, hey, wonderful, great. But I want the quality of my life to be there. I want quality of life. I want it now. I want it in 10 years. I want it in 20 years. That's what this is about. So on to the next item. This was in the New York Post today on August 19th of 2013. Written by a guy, Michael Tanner. He's a pretty decent writer. It says, here's an offer for you. $38,000 a year, tax-free, no work required. Apply at your local welfare office. It says the federal government funds 126 separate programs targeted towards low-income people, 72 of which provide either cash or in-kind benefits to you, the individual. The rest are like community type for low-income neighborhoods, and, you know, they don't give stuff. They don't give bennies out to people, and state and local governments operate tons of welfare programs. You know what I'm talking about. So, nobody out there is getting directly benefits from all 72 programs, but there's lots of them getting benefits from a number of them. So the Cato Institute is releasing a new study today looking at the state-by-state value of welfare for a mother with two children. So New York, which is the gold standard, that's the right word, for receiving welfare benefits, a family receiving temporary assistance for needy families, which is basically permanent, Medicaid, food stamps, I don't know what WIC is, W-I-C, but something good, public housing, utility assistance, free stuff, free commodities like milk and government cheese, they'd have a package of benefits worth $38,000, and they're only the 7th highest in the nation. I mean, Andy Cuomo, what are you doing? You're not trying hard enough. Please, man, come on. I'm disappointed in you, Andy. You know, I expect the minute he reads this article, he's going to pull together a special session of the New York State Legislature, start upping some of these numbers. So, while that number might not sound overly generous, well, I think it sounds overly generous. I don't know what Tanner's thinking. That sounds like a boatload of money to me. Someone in New York would have to earn $21 an hour to be better off than someone on welfare. And that's more than the average statewide entry-level salary for a teacher. And of course, you know, if you work, you incur certain expenses like, child care, like commutation expenses. And interesting thing is that despite the work requirements included in the 1996 Welfare Reform Act, only 27.6% of adult welfare recipients in New York are working in unsubsidized jobs. And another 13% are involved in like work participation, which means job search, training, and other stuff. Maybe they pick up garbage or clean the subways. Connecticut, you can believe it, is a little bit more generous. They're giving out $38,761 per person, which is $21.33 per hour. New Jersey, my birth state, they're a little bit less, $20.89. I mean, Hawaii definitely has the lock. They're at $60,590. Idaho, man, is stingy. They only do $11,150. And in 33 states, in the District of Columbia, welfare pays more than an $8 an hour job. In 12 states and D.C., the welfare package is more generous than a $15 an hour job. Of course, not everyone on welfare gets all those bennies, but for many recipients, particularly the long-term dependents, welfare is clearly paying more than an entry-level job. And Tanner says, to be clear, there's no evidence that people on welfare are lazy, and he says, this is throwing them a bone, that surveys consistently show that they want to work, but they're also not stupid. If you pay them more not to work than they can get by working, they're going to choose not to work. Well, duh. And look, of course it makes sense for them in the short term. It's going to hurt them in the long term. One of the most important steps toward avoiding or getting out of poverty is getting a job. Like, no kidding. Only 2.6% of full-time workers are poor versus 24% of adults who don't work. Well, who would have thought? And while many anti-poverty activists decry low-wage jobs, even starting at a minimum wage job can be a springboard towards getting out of poverty, because any job is better than no job. And so here's the thing. When you give generous welfare payments, you're not really helping people. Who would have thought? Explain this to the president and the entitlement welfare complex there, the people that live off these people. And there's millions of people who are living off of these people. You know, there's a whole infrastructure that's been built around poverty. They're poverty pimps. The Jesse Jackson people, the Al Sharptons, they sponge off these people. I mean, they're all the time you hear about people being indicted for stealing from these programs that are supposedly helping from the poor, although they never seem to. And there's a reason for that. And because as you dollop out, as you have Congress and these state legislatures giving out zillions of benefits and giving out tons of money, it's getting stolen. And it's getting stolen by this cottage industry that sprung up around the poor in supposedly in the effort to help them, in the effort to try to make their lives better. They're just stealing the money. All these social workers, all these people being employed, trying, employment counselors, everything else to try to help them. And nothing will motivate a person to get a job more than an empty stomach. I mean, that is the reality here. The need to work, the need to feed your family, the need to help your children. That is the greatest motivator towards getting people into the workforce. It's really that simple. So, as this guy says, if Congress and the state legislatures are serious about reducing welfare dependence and rewarding work, they should consider strengthening work requirements in these programs and removing exemptions and narrowing the definition of work. And in New York, lawmakers should consider ways to shrink the gap between the value of work and welfare by reducing current benefit levels and tightening eligibility requirements. Yeah, well, good luck there. When you got a guy like Cuomo in there who's buying votes, the opposite is going to happen here. Let's face the facts. This is just a big vote buying scheme. This is what they like to do, and this is what they're good at. They've been doing this here for, since I'm a kid. They've been doing this for, I can't even tell you how many years they've been doing this for. I mean, goes back to post-World War II. It's huge. So, next thing, there's something in Obamacare that you don't know about, that you didn't hear about, that didn't get advertised. It's more scary than you can keep your own doctor, you can keep your own insurance plan if you choose to. What I'm talking about is forced home inspections. Okay. There was a bill pending in South Carolina that passed the House but failed in the Senate that really is kind of scary and ugly. And they can force you to open up your home to, it's targeting millions of Americans. And we're going to talk about that next. It's Kerry Lutz back on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And we're talking about forced home inspections on the Financial Survival Network. So any family may be visited by federally paid agents for almost any reason, according to an Obamacare provision. Millions of Americans will be targeted. The Health and Human Services website states that your family will be targeted if you fall under the high-risk categories below. Families where the mom is not yet 21, families where someone is a tobacco user, families where children have low student achievement, developmental delays, or disabilities, families with individuals who are serving or formerly served in the armed services, including such families that have members of the armed forces who have had multiple deployments outside the United States, and there is no reference to Medicaid being the determinant for a family to be eligible. And here it says it gets worse. The home visits won't be just about Obamacare eligibility. It will be about killing off private life in every way, shape, or form. Take homeschooling, for example. Constitutional attorney and author Kent Masterson Brown states, this is not a voluntary program. The eligible entity receiving the grant for performing the home visits is to identify the individuals to be visited and intervene so as to meet the improvement benchmarks. A homeschooling family, for instance, may be subject to intervention in school readiness and social, emotional, developmental indicators. a farm family may be subject to intervention in order to prevent child injuries. The sky is the limit. Once the government has complete control over your health care system, families will be at their mercy, as we've already seen. Congress and the Supreme Court no longer serve to protect our rights. They now serve as entities that openly violate your rights. That's what they're about. So get ready for mandatory home inspections for Obamacare agents. I don't know when it's going to start. I don't know what they want to inspect for. I don't know what the hell this thing is about. This is on libertynews.com. Take a look at this. It appeared over the weekend. I'm not sure what this is about, but it's a little bit alarming that they can just come and inspect and find out what you're doing with your kids, whether they approve of them or what. One victory for justice over the past week. They're trying to pass all these laws saying you can't do criminal background checks or credit checks of potential employees. EEOC tried to pass such a regulation limiting your ability to do criminal background checks on future employees, potential employees. Well, a court finally struck this down, and the federal judge said it was laughable that EEOC could try to stop you from screening employees who could potentially be handling valuables or valuable information, and he just wasn't buying any of this. Kind of nuts, you think about it. Next thing, okay, Harvard University does a study on gun crimes and on gun sales, and basically, imagine this, that homicides with firearms and crimes with firearms have declined dramatically since the 90s, even as sales of firearms have greatly increased since the 90s. Who would have ever thought that this could be possible? And yet Harvard University did this study. I mean, isn't that amazing? I mean, how did they ever let it out? That's what I'd like to know. So gun crime in the past 20 years has fallen huge. And yet you ask the American public, has this happened? And they're going to tell you, no, gun crime has gone up dramatically. They'll think it's doubled or tripled. Well, here's the fact. The amount of firearms in the market, in the public, has gone up by like 120 million or something. How much do you think homicides have gone up since 1990? Well, the fact is, from 1993 to 2011, okay, and they went down even more, I think, in 2012, homicides with firearms are down 39%. Okay? Other crimes with firearms during that same time period are down 69%. So what does this tell you? Well, can you establish that these crimes are actually down because there's more guns there? No. You can't establish that because there's no way to establish a causal connection, because just because the two numbers have moved in opposite directions doesn't mean that they're dependent, meaning more firearms equals less homicides with firearms. Okay, we can't definitively establish that. It could mean that the cops are actually doing a better job of preventing homicides with firearms. I don't believe it. I'm sure you don't believe it either, but that could be one cause of it. So we can't establish causality just because we have the results of a study. But, and here's the but, it certainly could be the case. And there is no way to prove that it's not the case. even a progressive liberal, a statist collectivist, would have to look at this study and shake their heads and wonder. Okay, so there's an inference here that could be drawn. And the interesting thing here, what's really interesting, is that the population of the country has gone up significantly, and these numbers aren't adjusted for population. So when you take the population rise into account, those numbers become even more, because that means that the per capita numbers of homicides with firearms have dropped even more, and gun ownership hasn't gone up as high. And that makes those numbers even more skewed. So, real interesting numbers. And of course, the NRA would be touting them and saying, you know what? We need more handgun ownership in America. 300 million weapons isn't enough. You know that I'm a proponent of the right to defend yourself. I'm a proponent of, I think a handgun in every, 2 handguns in every garage. I'm totally in favor of. But no, seriously, I'm in favor of your right to own one if you so decide that you want to. I don't think it's a bad thing. And I'm certainly against the government interfering with your right and your choice and your decision to own one, should you decide that that's what you want to do. And these numbers, if nothing else, they do show that more people owning more handguns does not increase crime. Okay? Does not increase handgun crime. That much they do establish that the abundance of handguns does not increase crime. That much we can establish. That inference can be drawn. They might not causally decrease the number of handgun crimes, but certainly the proof is here that they do not increase crimes. So therefore, any gun control schema that anybody propounds, including you, Governor Cuomo, is false based upon these numbers. So that much we can draw from here. That much proof we have. And based on these numbers, handgun control, perhaps you don't want to give it to axe murderers, convicted serial killers, convicted murderers, probably convicted criminals. Probably a good idea not to. But to deprive law-abiding, ordinary citizens of their right to purchase handguns freely and from various sources, there is no reason to do that. On that note, we're done for this Triple Lutz. This is episode 295. Hard to believe we're getting to 300, just 5 away. Been another Triple Lutz report. Kerry Lutz, signing off.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.